Hey guys, today I'm going to be looking at Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov, the legendary Nabokov, um, English, Russian slash English, author, very celebrated, obviously known for Lolita, but Pale Fire is more of a complicated narrative. It was published in the early 60s, 1962, and it uses a very kind of skewered, unreliable narrator type device, and it's fascinating, but also maddening to read as well because it concerns and I'm just gonna say there's probably gonna be some spoilers because even though I try to refrain from giving away spoilers, I somehow end up like farting them out anyway, so I'm just gonna give you a heads up about that. But concerns, so the namesake Pale Fire comes from a Shakespeare play by the name of Timon of Athens, I think. One of his lesser known plays, I think. And obviously Shakespeare's, I see a lot of, people's, titular inspiration coming from that, art referencing other art, and, but yeah, it's it's a little bit convoluted. I had to, admittedly, I had to look up a few different summaries and stuff to figure out exactly what was going on, but it concerns a poet by the name of John Shade, who lives like in a fictional type of college town, um, in like I think it's called New Appalachia, and it's basically, I think it's up like near like New England somewhere in that realm, and he basically writes the namesake of this is a Pale Fire. Like he writes a poem that's called Pale Fire, and it's a 999 long epic poem with like all these different cantos, and he delves into his own and nothing's quite clear exactly what's going on. Like John Shade, he's a poet. He's not meant to be super clear and elucidate on everything. In the same way that say a linguist or someone in literary criticism might. So he gives little hints in his life saying that his daughter Hazel Shade may have killed herself, and basically it's not everything you get about this poem though is through the lens of a very eccentric man by the name of Charles Kinbote, and he is like a really kind of funny character because everything you hear about, like you'll see the poem itself in the beginning, like that's probably can't see in the vertical, but you'll see sections where it's like written out like poem, and then you'll get these long-winded, you know, things, like these long pages, just like page after page. It's not like a huge book. It's like 300 pages ish, but most of it is, like the poem itself. Obviously, as for a poem, it's well written. Obviously, it's like, I mean, if Nabokov is one thing, is as good as an author, and also is like a chess enthusiast, I think, but he was also a great poet too, and you see that here. And even though this is like kind of an attack, a witty attack on like playful attack on, I think, literary criticism, because everything you see, I'm going to divulge on the plot a little bit more, but everything that Charles Kinbote says is called into question. He is the ultimate unreliable narrator, which, given that this takes place like in like where it's written in the 60s, is actually pretty impressive, because this is actually often cited as kind of an early seed of postmodernism, planting the seed. And basically, yeah, Kinbote is obsessed with the poem, and he like keeps like writing all these different things, and it's like, and I found it kind of funny that there would be certain points where the poem like would be quite minimal and starkly to the point, or like it would be like, it would say something like the wind like had a like howled softly or something, or something like that, and then like John Shade would just, or I'm sorry, Kinbote would just go on for pages and pages like, this actually, what this means is X, Y, and Z, and actually, and he just like keeps compounding it until it gets bigger and bigger. And basically, it's it starts being more about Charles himself rather than the subject of his fancy, John Shade, which you're actually never really given a hint whether they've actually met, because first of all, things are very unclear, obviously. You're reading it through the scattered brained lens of, this madman, or insinuated to be mad, at least. And he is just, he's never met him, but he's obsessed about him. Like, he's supposed to be neighbors. I think that's what they're both, he's supposed to be like, oh, yes, I'm a John Shade. I'm actually, his poem, actually, this is pretty funny, but like he was saying that his poem actually was actually inspired by me, by my quest to Zembla, or like how I'm sorry, not Zembla. No, Zembla. Yeah, it's like the kingdom of Zembla, and there's like a King Charles there or something. And then there's all these different hosts of different characters that he spins up out of his, I'm assuming, just like out of thin air. Like, he's just, like, it's quite, it's actually, I mean, it's quite fascinating, but it's also like, you know, incriminatingly just not true. Like, it's just like so obviously not true. He's just like making it up as he goes along. And yeah, Charles Kinbody just writes this long thing about how he was in exile from Zembla, this made up kingdom that's like supposed to be kind of like a little bit symbolic of Russia, and like kind of maybe Nabokov's own transition from Russia, but like, and how he's like, trying to find solace and asylum in America, and how, and then how that there was like this assassin named Greatus who was trying to, I think, who was trying to kill John Shade, I think, or was trying to hunt down both Kinbody and Shade. Things get a little bit. He's not consistent, if there's one thing, and that makes sense. But yeah, he just goes on, and then finally, there's a point when it's basically insinuated that at the end that Shade or Kinbody actually kills himself. I think Nabokov kind of hints at that in like different things when he said, like, after writing the novel. And yeah, it was, I just found it an interesting, I guess, parts of it remind me a bit like with the whole thing about Zembla, and that at most Greatest might have been just this eccentric guy that tried to kill Shade but didn't actually do it. But not all these things were as crazy as Kinbody was making them up. But yeah, part of it kind of reminded me a bit. Obviously, this was later, but House of Leaves with Zampano, like his own kind of like that structured narrative, and how it's all told through like a kind of lens, darkly lens that's not exactly sure. It's not exactly sure like who to trust at times. So you get that right at the bat. Like, you get like Kinbody just reminds you of like this very, very strange kind of distant uncle or something. And but like someone that you wouldn't really want to be around with all too much, because he's just like wouldn't be able to shut up never. But it's just like I just love this because it's like it's showing the hard and fast facts, like the kind of sad facts about literature too. It's like literature is like you're spinning up, or like textual criticism, like you're spinning up this entire thing. It's supposed to be impersonal, but it's like it's supposed to be impersonal, but Kinbody is anything but. Like, he's like driven by his own kind of selfish desires. Like, he's never actually known Shade. Like, he's like, there might be like a bit of a jealousy thing. Like, there might be like a bit of he envied Shade as being kind of like a Nobel, not, I don't know if he's like an official Nobel laureate, but like a kind of a celebrated poet, a man of the arts, like a esteemed guy on campus, that that I think he was also a professor, I think, at some point, he says. And that Kinbody never actually got to really meet him, and he's kind of like, this is his kind of like last kind of claim to fame, maybe. Like, he's trying to like live vicariously through Shade in a way. He's like, his poetry means this, his poetry means that. And it's like just an interesting thing, because you have one thing, it's like the poem itself, it's just like stands on its own. This is what if you read Death of the Author by Roland Barthes. He goes through kind of like, it does the, um, which is also kind of like a postmodern type of, post-structuralist type of thesis almost, essay, but it like, you have like his finished work by the poet John Shade, and then you have, Kinbody's like entire extrapolation of that, which is like in a different category of its own. Like it's like, like he's grasping at straws and trying to weave out, like the classic saying of just like trying to make mountains out of anthills. And I think that's what makes it compelling the most, because this, you see that quite a bit in like, um, in schools of like analysis or literary analysis or textual criticism, and these people that, like at the end of the day, it's like writing is a kind of a lie. Like everything on these pages, anything on the pages of any book you read, unless it's like a hard and fast nonfiction, is essentially just a great big lie. So that's what I find, you know, so like rewarding about this read, despite it being, as I said before, like hysterical. Yeah, but yeah, Pale Fire. Yeah, check it out. Thanks for watching.